What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dad's All In live show. I am super glad you're here. I hope your week has been great. I hope your family is well. Just glad you're here, my friends. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even on the back end. Shout out to those of you watching the backstage on Instagram. Well, this is a thing. So, my goal, if you've been listening to the podcast, or maybe even you caught the soft opening I threw out last week, my goal is to fail in public this year, which means I decided, you know what? I've always wanted to do a live. I've always done podcasts, and I've never actually, pulled the cord and went live and committed to a show. And I'm doing it in 2026, live and failing in person for all to see, including yourself. So thank you for showing up. A couple quick housekeeping things. You are more than welcome to join the chat. If you got a question, throw a Q in front of it. It's easier for me to see. Know this, I am solo. I'm just bootstrapping here. I don't have anybody behind the scenes producing. So there is some pauses between scene shifts and me pulling up things and all those kinds of things. So bear with me with that. Speaking of like failing and trying to will my way forward despite it, I do want to say that last week when I did the soft opening, thank you for a few of you who jumped on with me. That was really good help, kind of like a practice session for me. I did fail, but I made it through. So I did a couple things like had an issue with my audio mixer, which hopefully, knock on wood, it looks like it's working right now at least. Had an issue with stumbling around with a variety of things in transition to scenes. So I made the choice to go live, and not only that, I made the choice to try to use an third-party software to bring it in to dress it up a little bit, and there's a lot of clunkiness on the back end. So bear with me a little bit for that, please, if you don't mind. Thank you again for showing up. I appreciate you. And for you, I want to make sure that you know you're appreciated. So I've got something special for you for being here right on time. How about some applause for you? Thank you. And despite my efforts last week, I did fail. I wouldn't say miserably, but I did fail. So throw out a sad trumpet for that for me. But I did make it through. So I made it through. This week, the main focus is talking about the challenges that you face and the challenges that your kids face. I recently put out a YouTube video that talks about how I believe the majority of kids across our country, the majority, are struggling with challenges. And that's a wide range, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute and what I mean by that. And some people kind of roll their eyes when I say that, but I honestly believe whether your child is struggling with something academic or all the way to confidence or medical needs, the majority of kids are struggling with stuff. And let's not be surprised by that. Society is a bit of a hot mess in case you've looked around recently. Adults are struggling too. I don't know. I don't have any data to support this, but maybe the majority of adults are struggling with their challenges too, which is why we're going to have this discussion tonight. So feel free to jump in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Just to shoot a hi. Hey, I'm from this state. I'm from this part of the country, or anywhere in the world, wherever it is you're tuning in. Let me know there, and also put a Q in front of your question. If you've got a question about anything related to challenges you face or challenges your kids face, or just share it in the comments, and I do have the ability to pull it up on the live stream if need be. So that's what we're going to dive into. So what I first want to talk about, though, is I want to get into some ideas about the importance of stumbling forward, which is, again, why I'm here. My goal in 2026, I always say I set the same goal every year. I want to lose 10 pounds. And some years I'm successful, some years I'm not. Usually what happens is once I hit the holiday season, it blows it all up, and there goes that. And then I'm right back to where I started, even if I had lost weight. And yeah, that's the trajectory I was on this last year. But I do have some other goals in that, approaching it from a parental standpoint, parenting is messy. It's important to fail, but fail forward. And I say that because we all screw up. We all make decisions and we think maybe it's the best in the moment and it turns out, oh, why did I do that? Or maybe your kids frustrate you and you get a little snappy with them and you think, boy, I could have handled that a lot better. So my point today is, as we're in 2026, but we're moving forward, think about, just think about the ways that we can learn from our mistakes, right? Like, think about how it is that we're going to make mistakes, but try to get better as we go forward. That's in the back of my mind, and hopefully something for you to think about too. Because my wife and my kids, we all sat around the table. My wife had this great idea tonight. We talked about a bingo board where we put all these goals down. And I'm pretty sure, at least me, I'm not going to hit all those goals. Maybe I'll get one. I don't know. One of them was actually to get a certain number of subscribers. So if you're here on YouTube, feel free to hit the subscribe and like and throw a comment. And if you're catching this on the replay, feel free to throw anything you'd like to, questions you might have in the comments there. But I'm pretty sure I'm not going to hit some of those goals. But what I'm hoping to do is fail and fail forward. Like I hit some stumbling blocks and then I'm going to try to, keep myself moving as we go forward. So at least that's my hope anyway. We'll see how all that rolls out. So I do want to introduce myself in case you're new, in case you haven't heard my podcast. I previously did about 5 years of podcasting with educators, and I gave all of that up to focus here on this Dad's All In Hub type podcast where I provide resources and information to help parents. I also did some podcasting for families for a couple years under the Recharged Family, which is my media network. And I say all of that because there are two passions in my life. One is my family, and just like you, all right? That is the top pillar. And then underneath that is helping kids, and that's helping all kids, but specifically helping kids with challenges. And that means my kids, that means your kids, kids in classrooms. I spent 20 years as an elementary school teacher and slash special education teacher. And I moved on to a resource position where I was in charge of interventions and helping out staff to help support kids in classrooms. And that was across the entire district. And now I'm an education professor where I'm working with soon to be teachers and paraeducators and getting them ready to go out into the classrooms. So my focus, even though I'm at the collegiate level, is actually the passion trickles down, hopefully, that I give some knowledge to my students and it trickles down to their students when they roll out into the classroom. So two passions, my family and kids in general. So I say that if you've got any questions about kids, advice, things like that, I do not have all the answers, but feel free to throw some things in the comments. If we have time, we'll get into it. I do want you to know I do have a background in interventions. That's kind of my jam, understanding how to best support kids through challenges. And that's emotional challenges, social challenges, definitely behavioral, academic challenges. I don't know all the answers, but I have a lot of experience. And that's why I do certain things to put out content to help families, in the past to help educators. Actually tomorrow, I believe, I'll be dropping a new YouTube video you can check out. It is diving into a program that's on YouTube. This guy's on all social media. It's called Toddlers Can Read. Spencer Russell, pretty awesome guy. Highly suggest you check him out. He does a really great job of not just putting out content on how to teach kids to read, but actually helping parents so they can help kids to read. And so I did a full breakdown and review of his content that he provides, and that should go live in the Dad's All In Hub YouTube channel tomorrow. You can check that out there. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges that your families face. And let me pause for a second. And okay, I'm checking the back door. By the way, if you want to catch Instagram, that's the backstage view. You're not going to be able to see what's up on this main screen here, but you can see me stumble around with my notes. You can see the backstage sign, those kinds of things. I have a difficult time seeing my phone, but I believe I can make it out. I got a parent who says one of the issues that they face is dealing with ADHD in their house. We have plenty of challenges in our house too. You are not alone. ADHD is a thing here. I am a proud ADHDer, and my kids come by it honestly because we've got a couple kids with ADHD. And it's interesting. We're going to talk more about this in just a second because ADHD is a very broad category. And inside of it lives all these different like characteristics and traits, symptoms of what your individual child possesses as far as their strengths and their areas of need. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So thanks for that comment. And we will get into that. If you want to jump over on the main show, either YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, that's the main show. You can jump in there. But definitely appreciate the backstage audience as well. My thought was, let's start with one main question about, thinking about you as a parent. What are the challenges? What are the challenges that your family faces? So what does your family face as far as challenges? And when we think about this, that is, really broad. So my thought was maybe I'll pause for a second here and dive into ChatGPT, and let's see what ChatGPT thinks about the challenges that families face, and it would kind of go from that list. Give me just a second. There we go. All right, so in ChatGPT, I've got the question loaded. The only thing I haven't done is hit enter. So let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. I love AI, by the way, at least this component of it. There are parts of it that we're all petrified of, but the ability to grab and information at the blink of an eye is pretty awesome. And I'm not surprised. Check it out. First thing on our list: financial challenges. Yeah. Job instability, rising costs, childcare expenses. No kidding, right? Like medical and healthcare costs. That's something our family is working through. We have some medical issues in our family with our kids. So that is top of the list for a lot of families, I think. Finance, how you go about, keeping money in your bank account so you can afford the things that your families need, right? These are challenging times. Then it goes on to say, parenting and child-related challenges, managing behavior, emotional and mental health challenges. This is definitely a thing. Relationship challenges, health-related challenges, social culture, time and lifestyle challenges. Finding time for your family with busy schedules is definitely a thing. External and environmental challenges, meaning like safety and things of that nature. So these are all really these are all really important topics, and to be honest with you, it's something that, as I pull this back down, it's not easy. Trying to understand how much things cost is the top of the list for a lot of people. I'm not surprised that ChatGPT came up with it. So I actually was thinking about this weekend because my son needed an oil change for his car, and I had to get tires on it, and so we did a variety of things to his car, and I was curious about the cost of an oil change. And our mechanic, who we really appreciate the things that he's done for us, he gave us a quote that'd be over $100. So I took it to another place. $110. Now, mind you, my son's not driving around like a big, massive truck. It is a Nissan Sentra. It's not big, but even so, like, when on earth did oil changes cost over $100? So I actually went back and looked a little bit into previous costs, and over the last 3 years, oil changes have gone up like $10 every single year, because about 3 years ago it was costing around $69 for me to get an oil change. Now it's over $100. So this is one example. I'll tell you another example that I've got. As I'm holding it in my hand right now, I'm gonna take a sip. I'm a coffee lover. Coffee is ridiculously expensive. I don't drink like the top of the line stuff. I drink Folgers, Folgers Colombian, and I don't buy the smallest canister. We buy like the medium, not the biggest one. And probably last year it was about 8.99, 9.99. Last week I went in to grab the same size. It is 17.99. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll look at the generic brand. I am not afraid to purchase generic stuff, right? Like when you're living as a family on a budget, you find ways to nickel and dime. We are not afraid to purchase generic things. Well, guess what? Even the generic version was only 20 cents less. So if you're a coffee lover like me, we are just going to hope and pray that the price of coffee comes down. So I'll share this with you. We talk about challenges as parents. It is really hard to not internalize a lot of it. It can wear you down. It can really get to you mentally, emotionally, and cause you to burn out. And then whether that's financial challenges, challenges with your kids, the whole list that I just went through, it is all part of the, I'll say, burden that goes along with being a parent. Yes, being a parent is awesome. It's the most important job we're ever going to have. It comes with some amazing perks, meaning like you get to see your kids do things that you might not have even realized they could accomplish. I'm still blown away that, my one daughter is wrestling. Like we never saw that coming. My son's off in college now, and knowing some of the struggles he had health-wise and way back in elementary school when he was trying to figure out, much like his dad, he had some struggles with learning how to read. He's come a long way, and my daughter is persevering through some of the challenges that she has. Like, it has some amazing moments as parents where you're just kind of blown away and you just taken back by how awesome it can be. However, that is not to say that it is all lollipops and gumdrops. That's not how it works. Actually, it is a lot of stress. And so my message to you as I kind of shift gears and go to the next question here is think about how you can take care of yourself, because it's not easy. And that's an understatement. But what we all know about parenting in general is if you do a better job of, I shouldn't say a better job, but if you try to do your best job of taking care of yourself, finding time to maybe get some workouts in, or maybe eat a little bit better and take some time for yourself, you're more likely to handle those challenges and the stressors in a better frame of mind. It's all about kind of regulating yourself. I always, from a dad's perspective, I'm not always successful, try to be strong and as calm in the moment as I can. Doesn't always happen though. Doesn't always happen. Like I said, rule number one is fail and fail forward and try to get a little bit better. So I am in that boat, just like all of us are. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about challenges that your kids face. And as I look up here to our backstage, I got a comment. Somebody says, kind of going along here, behaviors, dealing with their kids' behaviors. And somebody else had said something about school. There's a ton of challenges that kids face. The unspoken crisis, really, in my opinion, is that the majority of kids face challenges. So whether that is behavior challenges, academic challenges, maybe your child is behind in writing or reading or math. I was one of those kids, by the way. Maybe your child is struggling with mental health. Maybe your child has medical needs. Maybe your kid is just struggling with confidence or self-esteem. The list goes on and on. I'm going to share with you a basic framework that hopefully will help you with this as you move forward. It's a system that, regardless of what kind of challenge you're facing, you can kind of plug it in. And I've used the perspective of what my wife and I have gone through trying to help kids with our kids with their own unique challenges. And then I also think about all the kids that I've worked with through many, many years in education and mentoring and even in coaching when I coached, about how to help them through the struggles. So I'm going to dive into that. Let me pause and talk about the previous points here. Behavior at home is an issue. Behavior at school, behavior at out in public is an issue. This will fit the bill, and I can tell you the framework that I'm going to share with you will be give you some food for thought. Before I jump into that, think about this. I just pulled up ChatGPT to do a quick, like, hey, create a list of ways that families are struggling. And bang, I got a list of what I get, 25 things. You can do the same thing for your child. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, because one of the beautiful things about using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, any of these AI features, platforms that are out there, is that you can individualize it. And that is one of my biggest messages. So somebody previously asked about ADHD. ADHD is so broad. I have ADHD. My daughter, my son have ADHD. It looks different in all of them, all of us. However, I will say, I see characteristics of myself in both my daughter and my son, but it is the symptom, the characteristics, the traits, the superpowers that are involved with having ADHD. It is very individual. And regardless of whether your child has a quote unquote identified disability or a struggling area or medical need, anything, they all have areas to work on, and they all have areas that they're doing really well with. We sometimes have a hard time seeing their strengths, but every kid has them. So what you can do is take the traits of your individual child and say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a little bit of help. Here are the characteristics of what I'm seeing behaviorally. Can you give me some ideas? And then you're going to get a list of things, and then you'll see some things pop up, and you're like, ooh, I wonder about that. What does it mean if I use a reinforcement plan for them? And ask the question, and you'll get some more ideas. Ask for examples. You can really kind of go deep. One of the things I share with my students at college is don't be afraid of it. They're actually afraid of it because they're afraid to use it too much and maybe submit something that they relied on for, as AI, and then get dinged in some way. But what I tell them is, listen, we're moving forward. We're evolving. This information's at your fingertips. Use it as a resource. Don't use it to rely on every aspect of your life. There are some horror stories of people who just overly get involved with AI features and just rely on it way too much. So just keep that in mind too. What I want to do is go through and add in some slides. I actually put together some basic slides to go through this framework with you that I want to talk about. So as I pull this up, think about, what are the struggles that your child has? What are the areas that your child needs to improve in? And I'm going to tell you, every kid has them. Every kid has them. If you're sitting back and you're thinking, wow, I feel pretty fortunate that, my daughter really doesn't have many huge challenges, I'm going to say, good for you. That is rare. That's rare. Most kids are trying to work through challenges. They're trying to get, they're just trying to get to the point where they're having more success, right? So let me pull this up and I'll kind of go through this framework. If you've followed me on social media, this is kind of my jam. If you've heard me on podcasts, and especially family podcasts, you've probably heard me dive into some type of framework like this before. So let me give you a little bit of some 4 steps to follow as we kind of head into this. So the first thing I'll tell you is you want to identify your area of concern. That sounds so basic, right? Like, okay, but what does that mean? That means your child might have a lot. So you got to figure out one to start with. So somebody earlier talked about behavior. What behavior do you actually see? What's the behavior that's existing for your child? What is it they're showing you? It's far different for everybody. And there's no one size fits all for helping kids who have struggles, who have concerns. There's just not a one size fits all for it. You have to know your individual child, which actually leads me into the next part. So after we've figured out what the area of concern is, by the way, if your child, let's say for example, if your child is struggling with, somebody asked about ADHD, I'll use that as a reoccurring example here. Your child, maybe they're struggling with finishing tasks or just attention to tasks. Very common trait in a lot of kids with ADHD, adults too, just individuals with ADHD. Well, what you need to know is what are the areas of concern there. There are some positives with ADHD, like can your child hyper focus on things? That's absolutely a superpower. I actually, when I went to college, I figured out, wow, I have this skill. I can just lock into something and go for hours. I do have to be cognizant of the fact that I can go for hours and not really come up for air, and the walls can be crumbling down around me, and I'll still be grinding. That's something that a lot of individuals, kids with ADHD have. It's why you'll see a lot of, especially boys, but girls too. They'll be able to game for hours. They hyper focus, especially when you have some kids with ADHD, with autism, very common traits. So I say that because there's some strengths. So know your child's traits. What are the things that they do well? What are the areas that you want them to improve in? And for improvement, let's just focus on one to start with, okay? Let's just focus on one trait. A lot of kids with ADHD may struggle with self-regulation. They get angry at times, they're frustrated, emotional. Anxiety goes hand in hand with ADHD quite often. So the point here is you're not going to fix, I shouldn't say fix. We're not fixing kids. I hate that terminology. I don't know why I said that. We fix cars. We hook them up to a diagnostic. We help kids. So you're not going to be able to help your child through their struggles if you try to do it all, right? If you throw everything at them and try to improve everything, it's just not going to happen. It's behavior science, okay? But if we can pick one area to focus on and we know the actual individual traits of our child, then we can maybe start to figure out as we move into this next part, what are some resources and find some people that we think might help. So this is something that is absolutely personal to me because of some of the challenges my kids have gone through. My wife and I have had to reach out to people for help. We've had to look for help online. Where do you look? Well, I'd say you can look in AI for sure, but you can also go into Facebook groups. You can find a variety of communities online. Maybe there's people in your neighborhood who have an, or in your network of people that you know in your life who have similar challenges. Sometimes my wife and I will throw something out on Facebook. Hey, anybody have an idea about this? And so many people can be really helpful to kind of give you some ideas and starting points on where to go. So step 3 is once you've identified your challenge that you're going to focus on with your child, and you know their individual traits, you really stop to learn what makes them tick, what might help, what they might respond positively to, what they might need more help with to get through. Then you want to find the stuff. And this takes time and it takes effort and it needs to be individualized. Your child has an individual brain. They have a brain that is not like anybody else. I have twins and they don't have, and their brains are nothing alike, right? So what that tells you is every human on the face of the earth has an individual approach. So what we do often to help people, to help kids, is we just do a one size fits all. Oh, well, you've got ADHD? Take a fidget. That'll help you. Maybe. Maybe. Not with every kid. You know what happens to some kids who are at school, you give them a fidget, it becomes a flying projectile across the room. Or maybe it becomes a noisemaker and it drives everybody nuts. So it's not for everybody. So you have to think in terms of gather as much information as you can about whatever it is that you're focusing on for improvement. Search the internet, search AI tools. If it's medical needs, find the specific physicians that are going to help you. I always use the example, if my child had vision issues, I'm not just going to go to our family doctor. Maybe I'll start there, but I'm going to assume he or she's going to recommend us to somebody who specializes in vision, optometrist, right? So you want to find specialized people in that particular area if you can, and specialized resources. My wife just shared with me on Instagram a couple people who really gave us some tips on some medical things that our kids are going through. It was really helpful, and they've given us some insights. So there are things out there you do have to, one, search, but the next part is you gather in the information, and I want you to know you also have to be careful because it can be like spaghetti at a wall. In other words, you gather so much information and you want to try everything, and not everything is going to be right for your child, which takes me back to steps 1 and 2. You've got to know your kid. You might go to a doctor and the doctor says, "Oh, let's do this." And you'll say, I'm pretty sure that's not going to work for my kid. Maybe you're working with a psychologist or a therapist or somebody who's providing guidance for your child. Somebody had asked earlier about ADHD. Well, they may say, just give Johnny a fidget. And you say, pretty sure that will go flying across the classroom, sir. I don't think that's going to work. So my point is this: you're gathering in step 3 as much information as you can, and then you're going to sift through it. You're going to find what you think is worthy of trying. Don't try it all. Your kids are going to, they're not going to like it. And you're gonna waste more time before you finally get answers. Once you've done this and you've tried something and you think it works, you want to continue it, obviously. But if you try some things and it doesn't work, back to the drawing board. When we're talking about self-improvement, it can feel like, throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping something sticks. I totally get that. Back in my previous job, I worked with staff across the whole school district from pre-K to 12th grade, and it was across a variety of different settings too. So some kids who had more academic needs and specialized settings, some kids with behavioral needs, and then general education kids who were in all the classes. And I would go through and say to the staff that I was working with, you got to figure out how they tick. You got to figure out what is helpful for them, but sometimes it takes time. And that's hard as a parent. We want things to be fixed immediately. Patience is difficult. It is sometimes it just feels like things take forever, but that is development. That is child development. Things don't happen overnight. And so, as I said in the video that's going to drop here on YouTube tomorrow, when actually analyzing a reading program, whether it will help kids who are struggling with reading, what I said was there is no one size fits all. You have to have an ability to figure out some ways to be flexible and gear it towards your individual child. And if you can do that and constantly adapt and evolve and be patient, you're more likely to get them where they need to go. Well, mom, dad, guardian, thank you for hanging out with me. This has been fun. Let's do it again next Sunday. Every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Before I bolt, I want to ask you to subscribe, throw a comment in the chat or throw a comment in the video on the replay. If you're on YouTube, that would be super helpful. If you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, certainly you can throw a comment there as well. These will replay on those platforms too. And you can always get a hold of me, dadsallinpodcast@gmail.com. And I say that because moving forward, just like I did in the soft opening, moving forward, I'd like to be able to take some emails and bring them in and kind of figure out what it is that you're interested in finding out more about. And whether it be that comes from me or I bring on guests, however this works moving forward, I would love this to be your platform so we can build a community that's going to help you. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you out there. Have a great week. And remember, being a parent is the most important job we're ever going to have. It's not always easy. So hang in there. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.